Hi, this is Andreia. I'm an autism mom, and this is the Neurodiverse Voices podcast. If you're listening for the first time, I am here to be the voice of my daughter, other parents, professionals, and neurodiverse individuals through our own lived experiences. I want to give visibility to these superstars that most of the time behind the scenes make a huge impact on neurodiverse lives. Welcome to a solo episode of the Neurodiverse Voices podcast. Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference. In these episodes, I'll be sharing my own lived experience as a mum and my perspective on the use of technology by children. And by technology, I mean phones, iPads, tablets, these kind of devices. The benefits that they can bring, but also the challenges we face with my daughter. I foresee that not only autism parents will relate, but parents in general. Technology. Oh, isn't it wonderful? It makes our lives so much easier these days. It makes workloads more efficient. It brings the whole world together. We can easily connect in real time with families and friends who live abroad. We are constantly connected. We are constantly online. And I love it. But the truth is that the convenience of technology induces laziness. Let's forget the internet for a while and think about a medium that exists for a longer period of time. The calculator, for example. It makes wonders because with the input of numbers, it gives you results of calculations that would take a substantial amount of time to obtain. But this means that if you're not good at maths and don't use it on a daily basis, you will forget how the row calculations are actually made. And I'm putting my hand up right now because this is me. If you ask me to do division in paper, I would not be able to do it anymore. And like the calculator, you have the sat-nav, for example. I grew up with my parents using paper maps to get from one place to another, and then memorizing the ways. These days, you simply put your destination address, not even on a sat-nav anymore, because you can put it on your phone, and you just follow what directions Siri asks you to follow. And I reiterate again, this is amazing. But like everything else in life, it has its downsides. And I do admit that my brain becomes lazier and lazier with all this technology. And I would be quite interested to know if you feel exactly the same way or if you ever reflected on this before. So please let me know your thoughts and points of view on the use of technology on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. And you might now be wondering, why am I telling you all of this? Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference. That's because here at home, we are having a bit of a hard time with the screen time my daughter wants to spend on the phone. So I have conflicted feelings about it. I feel guilty for letting it reach this point. But then I also think that this is a reflection of her sensory needs. Until a few months ago, I could see the benefit of her using the phone. She has learned so much with YouTube videos, the alphabet, the colors, the numbers. She started being verbal by watching her favorite cartoons and asking us to watch them. She learned the names of her favorite songs on Spotify. She plays them and repeats the names of the songs. But this was until last year, when she started doing things like pouring down full tubes of toothpaste on the furniture, or my face and hand creams, or even the soaps. Besides being very expensive, because one day I had a full bottle of hand soap and the next minute it was completely empty, it started becoming dangerous, knowing that she puts everything in her mouth, not being aware of the danger of the effects on her own body. And I know that my daughter doesn't need to watch YouTube videos to be a bit cheeky. But we realized that she was scrolling up and down these YouTube reels, where some people have the brilliant idea of creating face masks by mixing the most disgusting products together, including toothpaste. And I don't mean that toothpaste is disgusting, it's just the actual mixture of it. So she was learning from that, but not the right things. So from that moment on, we removed YouTube from her phone and left only YouTube Kids. But that's not really what she wanted. Unhappy, she eventually got used not to have it and shifted her attention to Disney Plus and Spotify. And you might argue that I should be keeping an eye on what she's doing on the phone, to what I would agree with, just to a certain extent. As a mom who works and has the house stuff to do, I cannot be keeping an eye constantly on what my daughter is watching on the phone. Yes, supervision is done, but not constantly, and sometimes it's difficult to see everything that they are doing. And believe me, I do feel guilty sometimes that I didn't do that earlier. But feeling guilty is not going to help me in anything. So the best way to go about things is when you realize it, you just make changes and use strategies that eventually will make things better. Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference. So all of this made me want to take the phone away from her and slowly have her getting used to watch TV instead. Yet another screen, but at least this one requires her to make requests because for some reason she's not too interested in learning how to use the remote control. And we are increasing her vocabulary range. And with a lot of patience and meltdowns in the mix, I weaned her out of the phone. She learned that in the morning while having breakfast, we would have the TV on and she could watch part of one of her favorite movies while having breakfast. But when the time to brush her teeth would come and to get dressed, we would pause the movie, she would come, and then we could come back to it. There would be no more phone during the meals because even though she can perfectly feed herself, she wouldn't, because one hand was always swiping up and down the phone screen. She would have no control of the playlist in the car. She could request her songs and we would play them for her. And we were able to do it. It worked pretty well, but only about for 6 months. The only time when she would have the phone would be in the car and she would choose the songs on the Spotify list because she loves music and also doing it cold turkey wouldn't be a great idea, so we at least allowed her to select the songs in the car. And I am the most grateful person to have my family around, but we all know how grandparents can sometimes spoil our children. And in Portugal, for example, we have this saying that the parents educate and the grandparents spoil. So if you're not on the same page with the rest of the people who look after your child, it becomes a bit of a struggle to pass the message on to the child if you don't keep consistency in how you are trying to input boundaries on them. And I do understand that grandparents are a bit older and therefore they might not have the same levels of energy to be entertaining a child for a full day as we do. And they also have their own duties, their house tasks to do, their responsibilities. But it's all about keeping the balance. And just because there is a bit of cheekiness and because they cry a little bit because they want the phone, we cannot just say yes straight away and give them the phone all the time. Because if we do that, then they will choose to have the phone the whole day. So when she goes for a sleepover or to spend a day with grandmother or great auntie, she creates expectations. She knows that she will have the phone for longer periods of time than compared to the amount of time she has the phone at home. So when you give her the indication of a sleepover, she's very happy. You know, she's going to grandma, and Tia. That's how she recognizes them. And this is amazing to see how happy she is when there is an indication that she's going to go there. It's great to see her expressing her happiness for spending time and creating relationships with people in general. But this can be quite upsetting on the downside because she lives with me for the rest of the week. And then I have to deal with her requests of the phone and balance the time that she spends on the phone. And it's a struggle, especially on the days when she comes back home, because she creates expectations and she thinks that if she's given the phone in there, then at home she will be given the phone in the same exact way. Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference. This becomes even more upsetting because it results in family arguments. We all have different opinions, and that's fine, because we should all have differences of opinion. But I feel like I'm constantly rowing against the tide because of the lack of consistency. And seeing my daughter having massive meltdowns at home, where she completely loses control of herself, and I'm slapped and I'm kicked just because I'm refusing to give her the phone in the same way that other family members would do, just breaks my heart. All of this because of a stupid device that sometimes I wish did not exist. We're now back to waking up in the morning and the first thing I hear is phone. She even learned that asking to watch her photos and videos from when she was a baby, because it kind of melts me that she wants to watch herself, is a good way for mommy to give her the phone. And of course she's very cheeky, like any other child. And she's very capable of learning strategies of persuasion. This breaks my heart. This is exhausting. This is very tiring. And it makes me feel guilty as well, because I also use the phone a lot. Don't we all these days? We live on our phones. Anything you do is on your phone. But then I think to myself, you are an adult. You have projects you are working on that require promotion, content creation. You need to be in touch, and you are aware that too much is too much. But your daughter is a child with a developmental delay, so she doesn't yet understand that. And more than anyone on this family, I want to be flexible. Because I know that when she's swiping to the right and left, or up and down, not watching or listening to anything from beginning to end, this can be a way of her self-regulating and dealing with anything that might make her anxious go away. If we go to a restaurant, which is normally filled with sensory overload, crowded, full of lights, noise, I do allow her to have the phone. But then again, that's the lack of consistency. She will probably not understand, and I don't know from her because she doesn't communicate her emotions. Why does mommy give me the phone at the restaurant, but when I'm at home, I'm not entitled to have the phone? This must be very, very confusing to her. Even though I know she understands what we tell her, but again, her perception of the world is completely different from ours due to the fact she's a child and to the fact that she is autistic. Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference. So where is my consistency as a parent? How do I deal with this situation? More than anyone, my daughter should be encouraged to interact socially and not close herself in a screen. When she's with the phone at home, what I see is her laying down on the floor or in bed, ignoring the rest of the world around her, and becoming less independent. Occasionally, I will find her acting like a Disney princess in front of the mirror, but this happens less and less. The music passion is still there, but watching videos from when she was younger and seeing her imitating dance moves and enjoying dancing with me, this is something that doesn't happen much these days because she refuses it. Sometimes it makes me want to get rid of the phone once and for all. I wish I had an easy solution for this. I constantly think about her future and wonder how it will be like. How independent will she be? Will our systems change until then so that she's accepted for who she is? And the phone can be the easy way out now to keep her happy. But life is not always a happy place, and it's my responsibility as her mum to prepare her for the world out there. I do sometimes judge myself as a mother. I feel guilty for my lack of consistency. But I know I'm not alone, that most likely other mothers are going through the same struggles. And if there is any mother listening who has managed to overcome the same kind of challenge, I would be really keen to get some advice and hear your thoughts and points of view. Any strategies will be very welcome. Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference. Starting with this episode, I will leave you with a recommendation. I was reading a bedtime story to my daughter about Alex, who goes on an adventure to explore the world because he's keen on learning more and more. So in this adventure, he meets a very old and wise tortoise, and he asks her, how is it possible that a very small seed eventually becomes a tree? So Tobias explained to him how this would happen. But what I loved about the explanation was this quote of the book. Tobias went on to explain that the process of growth and transformation from a tiny seed to a majestic tree mirrored the journey of learning and exploration. Just as the tree continuously seeks nourishment and reaches for the sky, so too must the mind of the curious explorer. Every question asked, every answer discovered, becomes a stepping stone on the path of knowledge. Why am I sharing this quote of the book with you? It's because our journey should be a journey of learning and exploration. And I feel that even though there is a lot more awareness these days on neurodivergence, we should all get more curious and try to learn a bit about it. Even if you are not involved, you don't care for anyone who's neurodivergent, it's still important that we have the understanding, because by understanding, we will then be able to accept neurodivergence. Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference. And I would recommend a page from one of my guests, Leandra. She's a personal blogger. She has created the Centipede page, and she's wonderful because as an autism mom, she shares her own lived experience. But besides that, she also shares local places where we can take our children. She shares relevant information that it's helpful for all the community. But even if you're not part of the neurodiverse community around Oxfordshire, it's still worth to have a look and learn a bit more. Neurodiverse Voices podcast, celebrating difference. Thank you for listening to the Neurodiverse Voices podcast, where we celebrate difference. The next episode will be available on Saturday, the 1st of June, with my superstar guest, Rachel, one of the mentors at Oxford Creators. I look forward to have you on that side by then. In the meantime, have a wonderful Saturday and the rest of an amazing weekend.